People take pictures when they travel. It's so natural. Even if they are not traveling, people who like to take pictures always carry a camera with them. These days, everyone has a smartphone, so we take pictures more often than we did in the past. Let's take a look at some of my pictures. If you ask somebody why he or she takes pictures, it can be a silly question. Because they are so beautiful or fun or important and interesting, and we want to remember and keep them in our mind. Photographs can be part of our beautiful memories of the past. We often encounter scenes around us that we want to take pictures. For example, scenes like these. Airplanes or seagulls flying above my head. Fantastic skies and clouds created by the sunset. And clouds in the sky that change into various shapes. It's incredibly mysterious. Where does that color come from? How airplanes and birds fly? How those shapes of clouds are created? Of course, it's not that surprising when we explain this phenomenon scientifically. When we face a scene like this, we first instinctively admire it, rather than thinking about scientific principles or analyzing them. So, it's so natural to be surprised. Where does that color come from? How is that shape formed? We show these pictures to other people or post them on our social media. We want to share our feelings with others. It's a good thing if my pictures could be the subject of other people's attention. After many years, we would sometimes fall into our memories by taking out and looking at old pictures. As I like hiking, I feel touched by the beautiful scenery of nature. And whenever I do, I take pictures. When I see huge rocks, waterfalls, and deep valleys, I'm in awe of the scene. But what has really touched me is the wildflowers and their pictures. Wildflowers, as you know well, refer to the plants that grow in their natural state without being artificially protected. They grow on their own without any protection from people. They're exposed to cold, floods, storms, and snow, and you name it. The environment is way different from the flowers in greenhouses. Gardening species are mostly for sale, so they are under nearly perfect protection. Now, let's talk about why I've been touched by wildflowers. and what topics we can choose from them based on my experiences. Modern technologies makes it possible to grow flowers regardless of the season and environment. So we can almost always see and buy them. They're not affected by heat, drought, floods, or cold. But in countries with 4 distinct seasons like Korea, wildflowers can only be seen in spring, summer, and fall. In general, people think that flowers don't bloom until spring comes. It's no wonder that we think so. In winter, as you know well, snow, ice, and temperatures below zero are not the right environment for plants to grow in. But in fact, there are flowers that bloom melting snow around them in winter. We'll talk about it later. Let's take a look at some of the photos that I took on our campus. This picture was taken in front of the Bauer Hall in March. It's so small that we may overlook them. It's the same size as 10won in Korean money. This flower can be seen anywhere on the lawn on our campus in March and April. It's a quarter the size of the flower I just showed you. It's like the Milky Way in the sky coming down to the ground. If you look closely, you can feel the vitality of the flower. How amazing! This is growing in a place that seems impossible to live. It also shows great vitality living in a small crack in asphalt, a place that's not strange to be hit by a passing car or stepped on by people's feet at any time. They always bloom when the time comes, but we often remain unconscious. In the past, I was not very interested in flowers. I just passed them by when I went up and down the street and mountains. And I didn't try to find out the place where they grew. Then, from some time on, I began to be interested in colors, shapes, and the size of the flowers. When you look at them closely, you can recognize that they are full of mysteries. And finally, I started to fall in love with wildflowers. I learned that flowers bloom differently from season to season, from mountain to mountain, depending on the altitude above sea level. And I started hiking in search of flowers. Before I came to be interested in flowers, I had climbed a mountain for exercise. But after that, I went hiking to meet flowers. And since then, taking pictures has become my hobby. Now, I'll show you the pictures of wildflowers that I've taken while hiking. They're different from the ones on the campus that we just saw a few minutes ago. These are literally wildflowers that grow in the mountains. These flowers have different colors but the same name. They start to bloom in February before spring comes. February is winter in Korea. The temperature may be above zero in the forest during the day, but at night it falls below zero. The thing is that their living environment is totally different from that of gardening species. They are protected by humans in the greenhouse. Then, let's take a look at flowers that bloom in the same February, but in worse conditions. If you look at them closely, you can find that the snow around the flower has been melted. This flower did not bloom in the place where the snow melted, but it was melting the snow that covered itself. At that time, when I was at the very place in the morning, I couldn't find any flowers around me. But after about 5 or 6 hours passing by that place again in the afternoon, I found this flower coming up from under the snow. What an amazing scene! At the very moment, I was able to see with my own eyes that the energy a delicate flower with a thin stem like this gives off is truly amazing. You're looking at this just in pictures I brought here today, but I'm sure the depth of emotion will be different from yours, because I saw this process myself on the spot. Now, let's go back to January, not to Corona era. In January, Korea is in the middle of winter. Please pay attention to this. We tend to think the flowers won't be able to bloom in the middle of winter. But in fact, they do. They do bloom. People who are less interested in wildflowers may not know that they bloom in January. Not many of you are aware of this. However, it is in January in Korea that the first flower starts to bloom. Let's look at these photos. Imagine these flowers blooming in winter. And imagine that you find these flowers while walking in the forest in winter. What a mysterious scene it is. Now, I'd like to tell you this point. We humans have a strong desire to do something important or precious. We want to have more. We want to be richer. We want to achieve bigger dreams. So, sometimes we are jealous of what others have and the success that other people have achieved. In serious cases, we deceive or steal to get what we want as much as possible. When we can't get what we want to get, we sometimes complain about our reality and environment. But what about flowers? What about plants? They don't do that. They don't try to move and live in a better place. They don't want more sunlight. They are not jealous of other plants. They don't blame the outside environment for rain, for snow, for wind, for sunshine, for droughts and floods. They don't rush and they don't slack off. They know what they have to do when the time comes. They are satisfied with what heaven gives them. But we are not happy with what we have now. We think what we have now has been originally mine. We tend to be unsatisfied with the given environment we live in. More importantly, we don't appreciate the environment we live in. We need to be grateful for everything around us that has made what we are now. Do you believe that only what you can see exists in this world? Do you think the things you can see with your own eyes are precious? Do you think the things you can buy with a lot of money are precious? Do you think it's valuable when you can touch and feel it yourself? The most precious thing in the world may be the seemingly trivial things. Of course, those products that we can buy only if we pay a lot of money are precious. But I think what we can get for free is even more precious. They are not something I own, but they are something more precious and important that are beyond description. The fresh air we breathe, the green mountains, the pretty wildflowers, the beautiful scenery, the songs of birds, the sound of water, and the sound of wind. These are something we can have without paying for to get them. These are things that everyone in the world can have. They belong to all of us. That's why we don't have to make a special effort to get these things. We don't have to fight to have more. But here's something we tend to overlook. That is, we can't live without them. We can live without fancy bags, cars, and clothes. But we cannot sustain our lives without them. We think that expensive things are proportional to precious things. That is what we are wrong about. Even though they are invisible to us right now, they always exist around us. Even though they are invisible to us right now, we can say that they are not precious. Flowers seem to disappear or even die after fall, but they retain seeds and roots to bloom anew when spring comes. And even if no one urges them, they do what they have to do when their time comes. Like God's words, we have seeds that can remain in our heart forever and bloom. There's a song titled "The Rose," sung by Bette Midler. You might have heard of it. I'll show you some lines in the lyrics of this song that goes like this. I say, love, it is a flower, and you, its only seed. You think that love is only for the lucky and the strong? Just remember, in the winter, far beneath the bitter snows, lies the seed that with the sun's love in the spring becomes the rose. Yes, you are the only seeds of God. Like wildflowers that bloom even in difficult environments, we must bear seeds that can remain in our hearts forever and bloom. Therefore, we will have to be reborn through the Word of God, who lives and stays forever. God bless you. Amen.